So one, the settler is not a resident of Canada. The economic contributor is not a resident of Canada. Two, the trustee is not a resident of Canada. In fact, officially, they live someplace else other than Canada. And three, really, really, truly, honestly, the money and the decisions are run outside of Canada, not by the beneficiaries. Okay. Now, that does not mean that the trust can't have an investment discussion with the beneficiaries on a quarterly or annual basis. You can have a discussion. Okay. But they have to be discretionary investment advisors. So usually there's a trustee and there's an asset manager and there's the beneficiary, and the three of them can have a talk. Okay. But the decisions have to remain with the trustee for real. And that is, but that's the real issue. That's the big problem with getting a proper pure granny trust, is making sure that the beneficiaries don't excessively involve themselves with the trust. Granny trusts are the greatest unused opportunity. Okay, so here's the problem for immigrants to Canada. Okay, it's ongoing from a long time ago. Okay, so back in the 1940s and 50s, there were a group of immigrants to Canada whose government had tried to kill them. And they came to Canada and they hid money like crazy, and they never told the government about how much money they had. In the 60s and 70s, another group of people came to Canada, and they came from Eastern Europe and other countries where the government had tried to steal everything they owned, and sometimes from all over the world. And those people, when they got to Canada, they never told the government about their money because their government had tried to steal it all. There's only one thing in Canada that can get you kicked out once you're a citizen. Forgetting to tell the government something on your application. Okay? Many of these families who came to Canada in those generations totally forgot to tell the government about their money. Now, the problem was, it wasn't really a problem for grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad. It wasn't a problem for them. They just kept their mouths shut. Okay? The problem was when it came to the next generation. These people are Canadians. So the first issue is, it would be way better if prior to arrival in Canada, okay, you set up a granny trust with a trustee outside of Canada in an appropriate jurisdiction and put the money there and then told the government about it. Okay, that would be better, especially if, for example, it's this generation of Canadians that's coming, but the money is in that generation. Then that next generation can put the money into that trust outside of Canada for the benefit of the Canadians before they get here. So there's not a bunch of hidden money that gets inherited by accident when you least expect it. And even if you have the granny trust, it's a fully disclosed structure. Okay. Every distribution that you get, you file a form. Every time you receive a loan or a distribution, it's fully disclosed. You know, set it up before, do it in advance of arrival in Canada, preferably. In advance of grandma dying. Do it in advance of grandma becoming senile and not able to sign documents. Okay? Do it while you still have time to do it right. And then play by the rules, and you'll be fine. The answer is it is a perpetual concern that they will get rid of the granny trusts. I don't think so. And I think the reason is these are not families that are famous in China, but in Canada, there are families, you know, like there's all of these major families that have historical connections and have a huge amount of influence in Canada. Back in the 60s and 70s, their grandpas all went to Bermuda and Barbados, who own the news, okay? They all moved their assets into, quote, granny trusts. Back in the days when all it took was grandpa had to move offshore for 2 years and then put it into the trust. And then usually stayed offshore and died outside of Canada. But this was in the 60s and 70s. Okay. So I actually went to school at undergrad university with the granddaughter of someone from a very famous family in Canada. And she said, everybody's rich. I own nothing, but that's good. Dad owns nothing, and my brothers own nothing, and they're all idiots, and we'd be broke if they owned anything. Okay. But grandpa wasn't stupid, and everything's outside of Canada. Said it back in the day. So any Canadian government that would undo granny trusts would incur the ire and hatred of every one of the Canada's biggest, largest, most important families. And the other problem is that granny trusts in Canada are not a political issue like non-doms were in the UK. Whereas in Canada, it's completely not on the political agenda. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't all of a sudden pop up because of reasons, because of something happened. But I don't think it would happen. And it's a fair question, but we don't face the same political pressure at the moment.
Yeah, I think our client will be happy to hear that.
Yeah, that's my opinion. That's my humble opinion, that I think that it's not a political issue. Election, that's what I believe at the moment.